to Mint Rabbit Creates, where I show you how to create characters in systems that I like to play. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Star Wars role-playing game by Fantasy Flight Games. This is a very large role-playing game in that you have a lot of options and a lot of source books that you can use to make your characters for this. As a result, there are also a lot of online resources which we're going to be using today. Fantasy Flight has a number of different kinds of games you can play within the Star Wars universe. All of the source books are pretty interchangeable with each other, and by that I mean you can use a source book from Age of Rebellion in a game that you're playing that's connected to Edge of the Empire, and it's totally cross-compatible. However, there are different settings depending on the books that you're going to be using. So for example, Age of Rebellion, you're playing specifically members of the Rebel Alliance and you're fighting against the Empire. Age of the Empire, you're going to be playing outlaws, you're going to be playing bandits and bounty hunters and people who are working just to survive. And then you have Force and Destiny, which are going to be specifically about Force users. Force capabilities are not going to be extremely present in Age of Rebellion or Edge of the Empire. The rules are there, but they're very, very minor. If you're going to be playing a specifically Force-heavy kind of character, Force and Destiny is going to be your game. There's also the Force Awakens game. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know much about it. Today, we're going to be focusing on Age of Rebellion. So, what do we need to create a character for this game? Well, first of all, we're going to need a place to put our character sheet. There are two options that we can use for this. One option is the swsheets.com. This one is made by fans. It's a pretty good sheet that allows you to create characters for Age of Rebellion, Edge of the Empire, and Force and Destiny. It also allows you to create vehicles for them. This is Star Wars specific, and the character sheets are pretty easy to read, and even give you the symbols for the colors of dice that you're going to be rolling. However, it's not compatible with any other Star Wars material. You're going to have to input all of the information yourself. If you like this format, however, I'd say go ahead. It works. However, for me, the best resource that I've found is the RPG Sessions app. This is an app that is connected to a Discord bot, so if you have that Discord bot on your Discord server, you can play the game online and have it directly connected to your character sheet. The character sheets are standardized so that they look like a Star Wars character sheet. They're formatted in a similar way. You still have to input a lot of the information yourself. This website does not have an encyclopedia of weapons and gear and talents. You're going to have to look for that somewhere else. But in terms of laying everything out, I find it's very easy to read. The next website that we're going to take a look at is the Star Wars RPG Wiki. It has information about equipment if you want to look for something specific. It has information about different species and settings, and we're going to be taking a look at the species page for this. It's going to tell us what species are available in canon, and what species are available in the source books. Now, there's also a resource called the CSG. This is the Species Guide created by Mr. Gentle Zombie. It has information about all of the species that we currently know about in the Star Wars universe. It's not canon, so they might not be accepted by your game master, but it's still a useful resource if you just want to learn a little bit about the species, because each page has a little bit of a blurb that will tell you something about the species' history, or maybe a common cultural phenomenon, things like that. We have the Star Wars Fringe portal. This is a wiki that gives you a lot of information about a specific campaign, but this page specifically is what we're going to be using. It tells us about obligation, duty, and morality. Once we get to duty, we can click on the duty section down here, and it'll give us information. Then we have the Bastian Kane blog. This creator is very well known on the online circuit. And has a page where you can take a look at the different specialization trees. I have my own version of this. This is an older version that I can't find on the internet anymore, but this version is just as good. You'll click on all career specializations, and you'll get something that looks like this. It's going to be formatted very similarly to the one that I have. You should be able to download it or even just use it on the Dropbox and you'll get the information you need. Now we also have this, which is a document that I actually made myself. This is the Age of Rebellion motivations. At some point in the future, I might also have Age of the Empire motivations created for this, but for now it's just Age of Rebellion. And down here you're going to find all of the different tables that you can roll on to determine your character motivations. And finally, for our gear, we have the Outer Rim website. This is not going to give you specific information about gear, but it is going to tell you what's available and give you the basic stats. So I find this to be incredibly useful. So before we put together a character, I am going to show you how the dice work in this system. Star Wars Fantasy Flight does not use dice with numbers on it. Instead, it uses various number of colored dice with symbols on them that will tell you how well or how poorly you do something. You're going to roll your positive dice, which you get mostly from your character sheet and from other characters, against negative dice, which are going to come from the situation, the people that you're rolling against, and situational modifiers. Your positive dice are yellow, green, and blue. Your negative dice are red, purple, and black. When you are making a roll, you will normally start off with green dice versus purple dice. The green dice will represent your basic ability, and the purple dice will represent basic difficulty. Then you will get a chance to upgrade your green dice, and there are going to be a number of ways to do that. You could spend force points, you might have an ability that allows you to upgrade, you might be skilled in an area. Those are all ways that you can upgrade your green into your yellow. In the same vein, the GM could also spend force points or have a special ability created by the character they're controlling that will upgrade some purple into a red. There are also ways that you can add boost dice, which are blue, and setback dice, which are black, to the roll based on the situation that you're rolling in. If you have a character who is helping you, if you are taking a maneuver to set yourself up, if you have special equipment that makes things easier for you, those are all ways you can add a boost. If you are working in an environment that's not the greatest, if you're under a lot of pressure, if there's something that a rival is doing to make things more difficult for you, those are all ways the GM can add setback to your roll. So let's say that our character is rolling 2 green and 1 yellow, and they're rolling against 1 red and 1 purple. We'll give them a boost and a setback just to see how all of these dice roll out. Well, this says we have 2 successes and 2 advantages. Now I'm going to show you where we're getting that information. These little explosions are successes, and these little symbols are advantages. These here, that kind of look like TIE fighters, these are threats. And there's another symbol that looks like a triangle, which is a failure. This is a pretty good turnout for a roll. I would also like to point out that the advantages here, there's actually 4 of them, but we only got 2 because they are cancelled out by the 2 threat. If we had rolled a failure against 2 successes, we would have cancelled out one of the successes with a failure and have 1 success and 2 advantages. Let's say we roll this again. This is now 1 failure with 2 advantages. This is what the failure symbol looks like. And let's see if we can pull up a despair or a triumph. Alright, so this is what a triumph looks like. It is a circle with a star through it. Triumphs are going to count as a success, but they also have something else good happen. On the red dice, there is something called a despair, and it kind of looks like a bullseye with a triangle through it. And that counts as a failure and also something really bad happening. The success part of the triumph can be cancelled out by a failure, but the triumph still goes off. So based on this roll here, we have 3 successes, 2 threats, and 1 triumph. The triumph counted as success, but it was cancelled out by the failure. But we also have 2 threats because we had rolled no advantages, which means that we are going to succeed at what we're doing. We're going to have some kind of setback that's happening even as we're succeeding, but overall something really good is going to happen. If this had been a failure with a triumph, you would have failed at doing the thing you wanted to do, but something really good still would have happened. And on the flip side, if you had succeeded and gotten a despair, you would have succeeded at what you're doing, but something has happened to make your situation worse. Finally, there is also the white dice right here, which is used for Force-sensitive characters and also at the beginning of the session to determine how many Force points you're going to be using as a group. So it will have either white dots or black dots on it. And when you roll it, the white dots will represent the light side of the Force, and the black dots will represent the dark side of the Force. So now we're going to put our character sheet together. So to set that up, we're going to click New. We're going to see options for Genesis and Star Wars, and we're going to click on Player. We have 3 presets. You can choose Edge, Age, or Force. If you choose one, it'll automatically set it up for the character sheet that you want, but you can still alter it if you'd like. We have Duty here, which is a mechanic that works for Age of Rebellion characters. Obligation is for Edge of the Empire, and Morality is for Force and Destiny. A Force rating just means that if you have it, you're going to be pursuing Force-sensitive options. I'm not going to do that, but I am going to change my talent tree layout to a table. As you can see, it gives us an alert when we do this. I still find it useful because I like choosing character options that give me talents that are not connected to a talent tree. And this will allow me to do that and be able to find it easily. I find that if you have a table versus a tree, you're still going to be filling in information that you would be doing if it was a tree. It just depends on how you like to organize it. And I'm sure you can add extra talents to a tree, but this is the way that I find is easier. So you can do it whichever way works better for you. Once we have our character sheet loaded, we are going to take a look at our stats. So we have 6 basic attributes. They are Brawn, Agility, Intellect, Cunning, Willpower, and Presence. And the default number for them is 2. Brawn is your physical prowess, Agility is your quickness, Intellect is your intelligence, Cunning is your ability to be devious and kind of think around a problem. Willpower is going to be your inner fortitude. It's very good for Force-sensitive characters. And Presence is your charisma and your social abilities. And you're going to have skills that are connected to those, which are down here. We determine what our starting attributes are going to be based off of our species, which we're also going to put in up here. We have species options on this wiki page. These are all species that are from the source book, and they are sorted into the traits that they are most strong in. So, strong and burly if you want a brawny character, clever and underhanded if you want a cunning character, jack of all trades if you want someone who's all the well-rounded. So they're not going to have one stat that stands out above all of the others. They're not going to have one stat that is lesser than all of the others. But they're probably going to have extra XP or special abilities that will allow them to be very customizable. So if you like customization, jack of all trades is where you want to be. I would like to make a spy, so I'm going to choose clever and underhanded. And I think that I'm going to get a Bothan. I'm also going to choose the Bothan from this page here because I would like some background information and I would like to show you the difference between the two. So this page, we have our stats set up here: Brawn, Agility, Intellect, Cunning, Willpower, and Presence. On this page, we have Cunning and Brawn. That is because we are assuming that everything else is at 2, and either way, we're going to increase our Cunning here to 3, and are reducing our Brawn to 1. The next thing that we're going to do is increase our wound threshold and our strain threshold. Our wound threshold is 10 plus brawn, and our strain threshold is 11 plus willpower. Those are the same as on this sheet, so that's similar. What is also similar is the amount of XP that you get. In either way, you get 100 XP. That is pretty standard. An especially powerful character like a Wookiee is going to start with something like 90. A character that needs to be more customizable like a human might get 110. And you're going to spend XP to increase other parts of your character sheet. Here it says a Bothan gets a Streetwise +1. Streetwise is a skill. It's under general skills. These are going to be ranked, so we're going to get ranks in certain skills, and that will increase the amount of dice that we're rolling, or improve the dice that we're rolling. There's our 1 rank in Streetwise, and you can see that we also have combat skills, social skills, and knowledge skills. That's just for ease of reference. We also have a convincing demeanor talent, so that's going to go down in our talents down here. You click Add Talent. And we know it's ranked because it had a number attached to it, and it doesn't cost us any XP. There's going to be some more information about this talent. I think we're going to find that information later, so I'm going to come back to this. But if you can't find the information for the talent that you're getting, either from your species or because you don't understand something in a character talent tree, you can always ask your GM, and they should be able to find the information for you. And we're going to add that talent. Now on this one, you see that this option gives you a rank in either Perception or Streetwise. So this is an option that is not from the books, so it is something that you would probably have to ask your GM for. This is a pretty minor change. You're not getting more ranks in something, you're just getting an option to get a rank in something else. So this is probably not that big of a difference, but there are some species out there that are very different from their original stats. I also noticed that these are very good characters to use for spying. They're natural spies, they have a culture of spying, they even have their own spy net. So that's something I can think about when I'm putting my character together, when I'm thinking about their backstory. The next part of our character sheet that we're going to fill out is our career. Like I said before, our career is kind of like our character class. And we already mentioned that we were going to be doing a spy for this character. But let's take a look at all of the careers so that we know what our options are. We have our ace. Our ace is going to be our driver or our pilot. Aces can pilot many different things, including animals, spaceships, ships that are for planets specifically, pod racers, and they might be more reckless, they might be better at combat, but they're all going to have something to do with getting from point A to point B. Then we have our commanders. Our commanders are our leaders. They are probably going to have core knowledge, and they're probably going to be able to interact with other people. Commanders are also very good for filling in gaps of the party. If there's things that you feel like haven't really been taken care of, a commander can kind of fill those holes. Then we have our diplomats, which are our social characters. They're there to talk, to be the face of the party. They're going to be there to get other people on their side, or to manipulate other people for the purposes of the rebellion. Some diplomats could be more front and center, while other diplomats might be more on the sides. They're helping from the sidelines. Then we also have the engineers. Engineers are going to be fix-it people. They are going to be able to fix something. That could be droids. That could be weapons or explosives. It could be spaceships or pod racers or speeders. It could be explosives. They're meant to take things apart, and they know, they use their knowledge of how things go together to also be able to do damage to enemy structures. They could also be just core knowledge people, and perhaps a little bit have a medical background. Yeah, like I said, they're fix-it people. Then we have our soldiers, our core fighters. They're going to have combat skills. These could have specializations in certain kinds of fighting, such as long range versus up close. They could also have specialties like medicine. The medic tree is a soldier tree. If you want to be a healer, you should also be a soldier. We also have soldier options for inside versus outside cities. So if you want to be a soldier who's fighting on the edges of the empire in places where there is a lot of wildlife, there are options for that. And then finally, we have the spy career. The spy career is going to be all about getting in and out of places, and that might be through speed, it might be through deception, it might be through stealth or social skills, and they're usually going to have abilities surrounding stealth, deception, computers, things like that. Now there are also some character trees on some of these PDFs that are going to be what are called universal trees. For example, there is a universal tree called a recruit. The recruit is something that you can add to a tree that you already have. And trees can be, like many other pieces, mixed and matched with other elements of the Star Wars Fantasy Flight game, which means perhaps you have a character who has a career that is a Age of Rebellion career, but they might take a specialization tree from a career that comes from Edge of the Empire. Now, whether or not you're going to have to pay extra for that is probably going to be up for the GM, but taking on another tree, regardless of what it is going to cost you some amount of XP. So let's go back to our spy, and let's take a look at the career skills. There are 8 career skills that we get as a spy. So let's go down to our career boxes and just mark off the ones that are our career skills. These are important to know because when you get to buy new ranks in skills, these are going to be cheaper in terms of how much XP you're going to be spending. So a spy will get computers, cool, and coordination. They will also get perception, skullduggery, and stealth. They finally also get deception and knowledge warfare, which is right down here. So the next part of this career is going to be choosing a specialization. So let's take a look at what specializations we have available. We have a courier who's focused on speed, getting in and out just by being fast. We have an infiltrator who's more focused on, this is going to be like the James Bond kind of character, you know, hanging from walls and crawling through vents. We have an interrogator, they're focused on getting information from people through any means necessary. We have the scout who looks at a situation ahead of time so that the rest of the party is more prepared. We have a sleeper agent, someone who's good at infiltrating and also impersonating the enemy. They are social, they play a very big social role. And we have the slicer, who's going to be good at getting information from computers and databases and things like that. For this character, I'm going to go for an interrogator, so I get 4 extra career skills. I get charm, coercion, medicine, and perception. And as we see down here, perception is already clicked off, so we just have to add medicine, charm, and coercion. And now we have to decide how we're going to distribute our beginning skills as given to us by our career and our specialization. Our career skills, there are 8 of them, and we get a free rank in 4 of those. I am going to take a free rank in perception, in skullduggery, in stealth, and in deception. I also get to choose 2 of my specialization skills that I can also take a rank in. I am going to take a rank in I'm going to take a rank in medicine, and I'm going to take a rank in Perception. As you can see, having a skill that exists both in your specialization and in your career means that you can get a second rank in it for free. This would normally be 10 or 15 points of XP, and I'm getting it for free. That's pretty cool. With this setup, I'm also knowing a little bit about my character at this point. I know that my character relies heavily on their cunning. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 different skills that we've put ranks into that use our best stat. They're going to be very good at that. They're going to be very, very bad at brawn skills. But what is a character without some kind of weakness? So the next bit that we're going to take a look at is character improvement using the XP that we received at the beginning. We have 100 XP that we can use to improve our character, and anything that we decide to improve is going to cost us some multiple of 5 to be able to buy it. We have a number of different areas of the character sheet that we can improve. One of the first ones that we can consider is to add a second specialization to our character career. You can buy a second career specialization for 20 XP, and you can buy a second non-career specialization for 30 XP. Every specialization that you buy after your first one will cost you the number of specializations that you would have after adding that one times 10. So adding a third career specialization would cost you 30 XP, and so on and so forth. There are also specializations called universal specializations. For example, in Age of Rebellion, there is a universal spec called the Recruit, and the Recruit can be bought by any career for 20 XP as an additional career. Although it's not really attached to your career, it has the same cost as a career because they're available to everybody. Adding a recruit is something I did consider for this spy, but I'm not going to, and I'm going to show you why. You can increase your character attributes using XP, and you can only increase your character attributes at character creation. With one caveat, you can purchase a talent near the end of your specialization tree, which we're going to take a look at later, that will increase one of your attributes by 1, and that will cost you at the least 25 XP. However, it is a really difficult and long road to get to that, and you most likely will not be able to do that at character creation. But you can increase your attributes just by spending the XP as your starting pool, and this is how it works. If I wanted to increase from my brawn to 1 to 2, I would spend 20 XP, because it is the number I am increasing it to times 10. If I was to increase my agility to a 3, it would cost me 30 XP. And if I wanted to increase that agility to 4 after I increased it to 3, it would cost me 40 XP. That would be a total of 70 XP. For this character, I want to increase my cunning to 4, so that's going to cost me 40 XP. And I'm going to keep it at that for now. They're going to be very good at things that involve cunning, and they're going to be meddling in pretty much everything else, and they're going to be weak in things that involve brawn. And if I stick with this character long enough, I will be able to increase one of those 2s to a 3 down the road. An alternative solution could be increasing one of these to 3, using 30 XP, and then increasing one of those 3s to a 4 when I completed a certain level of my character tree. Both of those are valid options. Although, to be honest, any way of increasing your character could be considered a valid option. It just depends on the way that you play and the kinds of things that you're interested in. So before we spend XP on skills, I'm going to skip this and go straight down to talents. And this is because talents have a variety of costs, and I find that skills are the easiest thing to buy after character creation, so we're better off leaving them a little bit later. We have a number of talents associated with our spy, but first I'm going to take a look at one of the talents that we already have, which is convincing demeanor. As you can see, you can remove 1 setback per rank of convincing demeanor from all deception or skullduggery checks. That's pretty good. So if I were to edit this, I would say remove 1 black die, and what checks? Deception or skullduggery. This app has a handy little reference that you can use to include emojis for certain dice symbols. If you're using SW sheets, you're probably going to have to write out setback instead of the symbol for black dice. And now we have a description for the talent. This didn't cost us anything, but the other ones that we add will cost us XP. So let's go back down to Spy, specifically our Interrogator. And let's take a look at what we have. Our levels of talents are ordered in terms of cost. So the top row are going to be 5 XP, the second row is going to be 10, the third row 15, all the way down to the fifth row, which is worth 25. These arrows will help you connect your character tree to your signature ability. I'm not going to talk about that because that's not something you do in character creation. You do not have enough XP to get to this in character creation. So this is something you'll learn about as you play the game. However, there are a lot of skills that are connected to each other through paths that we can take a look at, because as you can see, Grit and Surgeon are not connected to anything. I can buy them, but if I buy Grit and Surgeon, I will still have to buy Intimidating and Nobody's Fool to get access to Bad Cop and or Good Cop. For this character, I think I want to get Know Their Weakness down here, so I'm going to start with Nobody's Fool and Good Cop so I can get Know Their Weakness at character creation. And I think I'm also going to spend an additional 5 XP on Surgeon, so that's going to cost me a total of 35 XP. Let's start by adding those talents to the character sheet. Now, you can see that there are also different activation types here. There's passive, incidental, maneuver, and action. I'm going to use passive because a surgeon is something that you're not spending an action to do. And we have a single rank, and it costs us 5 XP. When making a medicine check to help a character heal wounds, the target heals 1 additional wound per rank of surgeon. So I've chosen a character who has some medical capabilities, and I'm probably going to build on that as I grow through this character. When I get a second rank of surgeon, that will be 2 additional wounds, not just 1. I'm also going to take Nobody's Fool. I'm not going to include the descriptions for the rest of these. It takes a little bit of time, but you can do it definitely on your own. And I'm just going to include the amount of XP it cost me because I'm going to have to do the math later. Then I'm going to put in Good Cop and Know Their Weakness. Oh, I got the cost wrong for this one. Now for Know Their Weakness, it says that you can take the Know Their Weakness action, and this color is different, so we know that this is going to be an action. So I'm going to change the activation type to action, and then I can change these numbers, and then I could put the information about that in the description if I wanted. So that's going to cost me 35 XP from the 60. That's going to leave us with 25 XP. Now that we have selected our talents, we can start using the rest of our XP to buy some skills. When we buy ranks and skills, we are going to invest points by multiples of 5, and we're going to determine the price based on how many ranks we already have and whether or not the skill is a career skill. To buy the first rank of a career skill is 5 XP. The second rank is 10, the third rank 15, and so on. The first rank of a non-career skill is 10 XP, the second 15, the third 20, and so on. I have 25 XP to spend, and I also have a limitation in how many ranks I can hold at character creation. A beginning character cannot hold more than 2 ranks of any skill in character creation, so I cannot increase my perception to 3 ranks. I think I would like to increase my deception by 10 XP, or by a second rank, because it is one of the abilities that one of my talents helps me out with. I also would like to increase my skullduggery by 10 XP, because that is another skill that I have a talent that helps me out. Now, I also have some things that might help me with coercion, so I think I'm going to spend the last 5 XP on my rank in coercion. And at that, I have used up all of my available XP. Okay, now that we've upgraded all of our character attributes, skills, and talents, we can start to take a look at some of the things that make up our character's backstory. That is going to be reflected in our duty, first of all, and then after that we'll take a look at our motivation. Duty is something that is specific to Age of Rebellion, although there is a mirror to it in Obligation, both of which can be found on this website. Duty is going to tell us something about how our character contributes to the rebellion. Obligation would tell us something about how the character is beholden to others and what's keeping them behind, what's stopping them from succeeding. There's also a mechanic in the Force and Destiny books that's called morality, and it's going to talk about 2 values that tug your character in 2 different directions. Because we're going to be making an Age of Rebellion character, today I'm just going to take a look at duty, but this website should give you what you need if you're looking for obligation or morality as well. Again, you can mix and match, so you could use the Edge of the Empire character who also has some sort of duty. You could also have a Age of Rebellion character who has some sort of obligation. It might have something to do with maybe the era that you're playing in, or perhaps a unique position that your character is in. Let's take a look at our different duties. We have a good number of options here, and this website does a good job of explaining those options. I should also let you know that these are not technically the only options. Every career has a source book which gives you information about career-specific duties that you can take. I don't have access to that right now, but your GM might. And if your GM has access to it, you could pull from those resources. For now, the basic ones are pretty good, and you can interpret them to certain degrees to make them more useful for your character. For this character, I think that they are naturally suspicious. So for them, they are probably concerned about internal security because they are expecting to be betrayed. So I am going to add a duty here. I'm going to put internal security, and I'm going to put in the description. I could elaborate upon this. I could say maybe there's a person they're suspicious of, or an organization that they're afraid might have infiltrated their army. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to leave it with the basics. Now, the group contribution ranks, you're probably going to be referring to your GM to that, as with your starting duty amount. I'm going to enter the starting and duty amount as if this was a group of 4 to 5 people. As you can see from this website, 4 to 5 people have the starting duty of 10, whereas other numbers will have a different level of starting duty. And then you can also see that you can reduce how much duty you have, and that will increase your experience as well as, or as another option, your starting credits. If you lose 5 duty, you could get 5 XP or 1,000 credits. If you lose 10 duty, you could add 10 XP or 2,500 credits. For this character, I'm actually going to reduce it by 5 at the beginning and increase my starting credits, because the initial starting credits for a character at character creation is 500, and when you have weapons that cost you around 400 credits, that doesn't leave you with a lot left over. So I'm going to give us 1,500 credits. I'm also going to take an additional 5 XP by taking another 5 away. Whoops. And I'm going to dump that immediately into computers. I think that is a good skill for a spy to have. And I will increase my total XP to 105 so that I can remember how much XP I've received. The next bit that we're going to add to our character sheet is our character's motivation. The motivation can be found right underneath duty. And we're going to use this resource, this set of spreadsheets that I created to figure out which kind of motivation works best for our character. Your motivation is going to be something that drives your character. It's telling us something about who they are as a person. It's also telling us why they're fighting for the rebellion, and it will probably also help us direct the story together as a group. For this reason, I recommend that you talk to both your GM and the other players in your group about the kind of motivations you would like to choose. Some of the motivations in this list might be something that other players don't really want to interact with, in which case you might need to edit what you're doing. There are also some motivations that work really well together, so if you're looking to create a game where you and another character specifically have a very important relationship, this is a way for you to build that into your character. There are 4 types of motivations. There's beliefs, connections, quests, and then a career-specific motivation, depending on your character career. On this table, you'll also see that you have the opportunity to roll once for each of any 2 categories. So if you are just rolling randomly for your motivations, you'll roll a d10 and you could choose 2. You could just choose what you'd like as well and probably also take up to 2. Beliefs, connections, and quests are all here with a D100 table. All of the other careers also have a D100 table. Beliefs and connections and quests are usually more personal. They consider larger values, things about your character's hopes and goals, whereas drives, creeds, and so forth may specifically reference your character's job, what their job is, and how they value their work. Because our character is a spy, we have a character table for secrets, and for this character I am going to take 2 motivations so that we can flesh them out a little bit and also take a look at how these tables work. So first of all, I think I want to take a political connection for this character. This is because Bothans joined the Alliance as almost an entire planet. The Bothan Spy Network worked really closely with the Alliance to gain a lot of information, and often used their skills as leverage in order to get what they wanted out of this coalition of nations. So this character representing a greater whole totally makes sense based off of what I know about the Bothans. They're probably joining because they've been told to by a larger political entity, or perhaps they want to be part of having some kind of influence. So I'm going to put political connections. I'm going to say part of the Bothan effort to secure influence among the rebellion. Now, I'm also going to take a motivation that belongs to the secrets, which are looking specifically at spycraft. This is one of the tables where you're looking at a character's trade, what they value about their job and what they consider is important. So you have things like falsification, detection, extraction, so on and so forth. For this character, I think tracking is more important to them. They are interested in learning the true nature of secrets and using the information they have to find more information down the road. An interrogator is probably interrogating people that they come across in order to find information for the next secret, the next piece of information that will help the rebellion. So I'm going to put secret tracking. Maybe not good at, maybe tends to find information. Which tells us something about this character as well, because we also now know that the kind of information they find is the stuff that they find by interacting socially with other people. This is not the kind of person who's going to be climbing buildings and hanging from ceilings. This is the kind of person who's infiltrating a party, or perhaps is capturing a local politician and then grilling them for information. Okay, so now that we have our motivation selected, we can go on to our equipment, which includes our weapons, our tools, our gear, our armor, and so on. Before we do that, we have to take a look at encumbrance, which indicates how much we can carry. Our encumbrance is going to be our brawn plus 5, so our encumbrance is going to be 6. And now we can start to select some weapons for our character. This website is a great place to take a look at weapons. It has a couple different ways to navigate. You can use the search bar if you know what you're looking for. You can also click on a specific book to see what's available in certain books. And then there's also tags for the kinds of things that you're looking for, whether it's weapons or vehicles or armor or gear. If we click on weapons, we will see all of the weapons available from all of the source books. There's 305 items in this list, which can be a little daunting to look at. I'm going to take a look at the weapons that are specifically in the Age of Rebellion core rulebook. That's the most basic stuff. You'll get a good smattering of everything that you need for that. And we're going to take a look at a couple of these different weapons to see how they work. The weapons are going to be attached to a skill that you are going to use to wield them. So for example, the combat knife is a melee weapon and relies on the melee skill. The melee skill is attached to your brawl rating, so it's probably not a good idea for our character to get one. However, a blaster pistol is ranged light, and ranged light is an agility related skill, and our character has a 2 in agility, so it might be a bit easier for them to use. We also want to take a look at the price and rarity of the item. For example, the anti-vehicle mine has a rarity of 6, and it even has an R next to the price, which indicates that it's hard to find. It's 1400 credits. Now, at character creation, this is probably not something you're going to have access to. A GM will usually put limitations on the rarity of items you can access. Anything with an R next to it is probably not going to be allowed. Rarity 6 or 7 items are probably not going to be allowed. A rarity 4 item is probably going to be allowed. So I think it's safe to take the blaster pistol. We also can afford it because it's only 400 credits. Now the blaster pistol page gives us all the information we need to know about it. We know it's an energy weapon. There are some weapons that are not energy weapons. So for example, the brass knuckles would not be an energy weapon. There's also a slug blaster, which is basically just a regular gun. It fires metal bullets. It does not fire energy bolts. We know that it's attached to the ranged light skill, and we know that it does 6 points of damage. This blaster pistol also has a crit rating of 3. A crit rating indicates how many advantages you need to roll to inflict a critical injury. The GM will have a critical injury table that they reference, and it can affect both PCs and NPCs depending on who made the attack. And every time you roll on the crit table, you have a range of different things that can happen. The smallest side effects could be something like losing a maneuver or gaining a setback dice, whereas some of the larger side effects could be bleeding out, losing the use of a limb. It's very unlikely that the first few hits with a crit is going to get you very high on the crit table, but every time you roll a crit on the same enemy, the worse the result gets. So that's a little bit how the crit works. Then we have range. There's a bunch of different ranges. There's engaged, short, medium, long. I think there's also very long, and medium is not bad for a pistol. Encumbrance of 1, that indicates how heavy it is, how many of those you could carry on your person. You could carry 6 for our character because each one has 1 encumbrance, but we're not going to be carrying 6 pistols. You have the hardpoint rating. The hardpoint rating indicates how many customizations you can add to this weapon. Some weapons have 0 hardpoints, some weapons have significantly more hardpoints. 3 is pretty good for a pistol. It's highly customizable. A customization might be anywhere from 1 to 3 hardpoints, so depending on what you're exactly doing, that could change what kinds of customizations are available. We have the price, we have the rarity, and then we also have a special section. This item does have a special setting. It is the stun setting. You know how our character had both a strain and a wounds number up here? Right here? Well, our regular damage will affect somebody's wounds, but a stun damage weapon will affect strain. So when something has a stun setting, as the blaster pistol does, it means that you can choose to switch it to a stun setting and therefore only stun your opponents, only knock them out rather than choose to kill them. There are other special things. There's specials that allow you to pierce armor. There's specials that allow you to grapple an opponent. There's specials that will do extra damage. And they usually will have a number next to them if you have to roll a certain number of advantages to set them off. Stun setting, however, doesn't have a number because it's just an alternate setting to the blaster pistol. So we're going to put this information into our character sheet. We have the name, we have the linked skill, we have the base damage. If this was a brawl related weapon, we might add the brawn to the damage that is done, but not in this case. We have a crit rating, we have a range, our encumbrance of 1, our hard points of 3, and our rarity of 4. And if we go up here, too high. If we go up here, our encumbrance is currently 1. And we have spent 400 credits. And let's also add a quality here that tells us that it is a weapon with a stun setting. Alright, let's see what other weapons are available. I want to take a look at some of the specials because I want to know how they are going to affect the weapon. For example, an item with Vicious is going to increase the lethality of a critical injury. An item with Cumbersome is going to require the number attached to Cumbersome in Brawn, so Cumbersome 2 would require a Brawn of 2. An item with Pierce, such as this one right here, allows you to pierce through armor, and so on and so forth. I would like to get an item that has a blast rating. So there are a number of different blast ratings available. There's an armor piercing grenade. There's also a frag grenade. I think I'm going to go for the armor piercing grenade. And as you can see, it does a lot of damage and has a blast of 4. And it also has a pierce of 3, which I like for this weapon. So let's take a look at that and add it to our weapons. Now this is a rarity 6 item, so let's say in this case the GM was being a little more forgiving. If this is not one you can take, I would suggest the frag grenade because it's not as powerful in terms of damage that it can do, but it's still a throwable weapon. And we'll just fill in the damage here. Crit rating of 3, a range of short. It should have 0 hard points, which it does. And it has an encumbrance of 1. Now we also have to add a quality that tells us that it has a limited ammo. We can only spend it once. We want to add that it has a pierce quality. We're going to talk about soap when we get to armor. And it has a blast of 4. The nice thing about blast is that you can even use it on a failure as long as you have 3 advantages in order to spend for it. And we're going to alter our encumbrance to reflect that. Now, if there is a number of items that you want to carry and you find yourself running out of room, you might want to take a look at things that have the storage tag on them, which is up in our gear here. So for example, the backpack, it is something that has a storage tag. Now if you click on it, it's not going to tell you how many extra things you can carry. But if, for example, you went here, you might be able to find that out on this wiki. It tells you it gains +4 to a character's encumbrance threshold. So using this wiki is probably a good place to take a look at how certain equipment and tools work. But the next thing I want to do is find our character some armor. So armor is going to be where we're going to get a value called soak. I'm going to click on adverse environment gear because I know that that's already the armor that I want. And we're going to take a look at the value of soak. So soak is going to be your character's ability to take some damage without it actually affecting their wound threshold. Your soak is going to originally just be what your brawn is, so our soak would be 1. And we're going to increase it to 2 because we're going to add some adverse environment gear. So here is our armor section. Adverse environment gear has a rarity of 1, so we know it's definitely available. It has a soak of 1. Some heavier pieces of armor might increase the amount of soak that it gives you. It might also give you defense against other things, such as you might have something that gives you a defense against energy weapons or a defense against bladed weapons. That will be indicated on the page. So for example, there is a 0 defense here. So the adverse environment gear gives you some soak, but it does not give you defense against certain weapons. We also know that it costs us 500 credits. And we know that it has an encumbrance of 2 and a hard point of 1, so it is somewhat modifiable, but it is a little bit heavier than standard clothing. And that increases our encumbrance to 4. Now, because it cost us 500 credits, we're going to have to take this down to 600 credits. And now we're going to have to start thinking about what kind of gear we're going to add. We can take a look on this website for that. I'm going to take a look at Ciphers and Masks this time, which is the source book for spies specifically. And let's take a look and see what's available. So a lot of these have a pretty high rarity, which means they're not going to be available, and some of them also have some pretty high costs, which also makes them not so available. But one thing that is available and isn't too rare is an earbud comlink. If we want to know how that works, maybe we can find it in here. All right. So it says that noticing the earbud comlink requires a hard perception check. So it's also usable at long range. So it's probably a great thing to have if you want to be able to communicate with others and to be able to do it inconspicuously. Let's get that. So we will add the equipment. We're getting 1. The nice thing about the earbud comlink is that it also has an encumbrance of 0, so it's not going to influence our encumbrance at all. And we also know that it has a rarity of 5. Now when you add equipment, you are also going to be able to add a description to it. And instead of putting this in, I'm going to put in the symbols for a hard perception check. There we go. Now I'm not going to spend all of my credits because I think just showing you what kinds of things you can get is more useful. So I'm just going to finish us off with just a memstick. It's basically just kind of like a small hard drive that allows you to store information on it. Costs you 30 credits. Not very rare, doesn't increase your encumbrance at all, but just to make it available. And that brings us down to 495 credits. Not a bad idea to have some starting credits for our character. They might want to use them for something, maybe perhaps a bribing out official or something like that. But that is our character. So thank you for watching, and happy gaming.